Hi, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, baby metal fan, and I'm going to do, somewhat belatedly, a discussion of the most recent single, Light and Darkness. It's taken me a little while to get to this, partly because I had a lot of stuff going on and I was traveling with students in the UK, but also, in honesty, because I didn't have a handle on the song. I've always said I'll talk about a song when it means something to me and I feel like I have something to say, rather than just doing a reaction. Reactions work more, I think, when the song has an immediate emotional impact. And I didn't actually feel that right off the bat, not compared to a song like Monochrome, say. And I found the song quite difficult to connect to. And I think difficult is a good word, and one that I'm likely to use quite a lot in this analysis. And I don't mean it as a criticism. I'm not saying this is not a good song. I'm saying that it's a challenging and complicated song. And I think it's difficult in a lot of different ways. And one of the areas in which it's difficult is lyrically. My Japanese is frankly not good enough. You know, sometimes I'll listen to a baby metal song and I'll get chunks of it right away, certain words and phrases and sentences that I'll understand, and then some that I can look up and piece together and get a sense of it, or run some lyrics through a machine translation and then sort of analyze the machine translation to see where it's wrong and figure stuff out. And when I'm stuck, I can ask native Japanese speakers to help me out with a particular word or phrase or something. But with this song, I felt quite paralyzed by it. I found it difficult, and I couldn't begin to talk about it until I started to look at Capable Paramedics' excellent, as ever, translation. And not just because the translation itself is good, but because he provides a lot of notes that give you nuance about the way certain kanji are read and the certain sort of cultural associations connected to them. So I'm going to be heavily reliant on that, because that gave me the confidence is the wrong word, the sort of firm ground to start to feel like I'm starting to understand this song's complexity. So let's talk about it in those terms. So yeah, particular thanks to Capable Paramedic, as ever, but particularly in this case, really, really helpful. I mean, wow, those first two lines, it's really striking, you know. First, there's no build, there's no lead into the song, there's no sort of atmospheric cue in for the audience. It just sort of throws you right into the middle of the song. It must be sort of timed, you know, silently so that they hit that first note. But as I said, this is going to be a mark of the way that I think about the song. You don't know what's going on. There's no sort of tonal cueing, right? So we don't know what we're supposed to feel. And we're thrown into this sort of oddly distancing sort of techno drum beat, right? It's not a sort of typical baby metal sound, apart from a couple of songs on Metal Galaxy. But this is framed as a kind of dance song in a specifically electronic mode. And then we also get this really mechanistic choreography, which seems to reduce the people to automata. And we've seen versions of this before in baby metal, but it's really striking here, right? This sense of the sort of the machinery of the human body being presented. As far as the lyric is concerned, these first couple of lines, Capable Paramedics translations, even though the reality buried under the snow of sorrow, even my hands dyed red by fault. And his note says that the dyeing red with fault suggests a prior mistake, right? It's been like being caught red-handed, something that you have done that is bad. It doesn't attempt to get away from the responsibility of it. So we're beginning the song with a sense that something bad has happened in the past for which the speaker feels somehow responsible. and that this is sort of weighing on her as the song begins. And I think that it goes along, I think, with that mechanistic choreography, which sort of strips the person of their capacity to be organic, to feel, right? That they're being reduced to some sort of machine, which perhaps they're not entirely in control. And I think this is a sort of central idea for this song, that we're trapped in a moment between light and dark, a moment where the circumstances of the past have put us in a particular place and we don't know exactly how to move forward. I mean, this is why I was struggling with the song. So, we jump straight into it and we move into this first stanza, and then something happens at the end of the first stanza. We haven't concluded a verse, and now we're moving into some sort of chorus or pre-chorus. In the middle of the verse, the register entirely changes. Suddenly, the volume steps up, the intensity steps up, and something different has happened within those first lines, which I think is really unusual and striking, very unconventional in terms of songwriting. And you notice some of that choreography at the beginning, the sort of the inability to see, right? Being sort of in the dark, not being able to see, and therefore not knowing what's going on. And if we look at the lyric, take me out to a place beyond memory, is the way that I'm reading this. Capable Paramedic talks about the image of something forgetting and something far away. So let me sort of forget something completely. But I think the phrasing is even more striking, right? It's like, I want to get to a place where I cannot remember, and go to an ideal world which is contented with affection, or connected to that affection. And then we're going to open some sort of door, and that sa that she sings at the end is now. And this is the point where the song sort of steps up in register, right? That we're thinking about the past, we're trying to move beyond the past, and we want to open this door. And we don't know exactly what's on the other side of the door, and I don't know if it's us opening the door or the other person. This is a love song of sorts, right? It's a relationship song. Again, a little unusual for BABYMETAL, right? Especially in a non-ballady kind of song like Akatsuki. So it's not clear who's opening the door. It feels to me like this is the singer wanting to open the door, even though we don't know exactly what's on the other side. But somehow we have to move forward. And doors are, of course, boundary markers, right? And that's where the song is. It's situated, again, in that space between light and dark. You think of it as, to draw on other BABYMETAL songs that have used similar images, that idea of a nighttime at the point of dawn, right? But I think here, it's almost like one of those sort of equinoctial nights where there's a sort of perfect balance between the length of the day and the length of the night, something like that, right? Where everything is sort of in harmony, but it also means that we're also kind of in no man's land. We're in this sort of no place. And within the frame of the song, I think it can go in either direction, maybe. So this is the sort of anthemic part of the song, right? It rouses us, we move out of that, and the sort of discotheque kind of beat has been replaced with something more clearly punctuating, right? It's not every beat, it's every other beat, and it gives the whole thing more of a sort of emotional drive. And if we look at the lyric, Dokusarete ku yume ni ochiru. It's tricky. So again, we're feeling some sort of corruption and moving into falling into a dream, and then hikari to yami ga motome kanadeo yoru. So it's a night when light and darkness call for and harmonize with each other. And we're rizumu no umi ni obore, drowning in a sea of rhythms. And as Capable Paramedic points out, rizumu is obviously a loan word from rhythm. And it's been used before in baby metal, obviously with a sort of musical sense, a sense of the rhythm of the music. So there's an intersection of the song and the performance of the song and the emotion and the sort of the relationship backstory of the song. These things are somehow intertwined. There's also the rhythm of relationships, the rhythm of life, right? I think it's that too. And I want to come back to these images of water and drowning and light and darkness and harmony in a second. Let's get through the next part. So we build and we get this sort of two-stage finish. And it's, again, striking and difficult. I think it's a difficult song to sing because the voice is having to sort of jump several tones to up and down, up and down. You don't have that sort of clear progression where the voice can find its way through to the next note. We're leaping around. And the first sort of the false ending of the couplet is a semitone flat, right? Of what you initially expect. That first note you expect to go a little bit higher, and it doesn't. So it's sort of jarring and discordant. And then it has to resolve in the next couplet, in the next lines, where we then find the sort of natural tonic note of the scale of the key which the song is in. So first we get that accidental that sort of throws us off, and then we get the resolution. And I think, and then we move into that sort of darker, heavier, slightly more metal kind of sound in the interim. But, you know, again, lyrically, even our memories are being destroyed. Kono ai wa soyuku. This love is powerful and unceasing. Tomaranai kito. Never ends. Kono ai wa tsuyoku. This love is binding. It's strength. Hanasasanai zuto. So it never releases you, never lets go. So if we put it all together, we're feeling corrupted, falling into some sort of dream. It's a night when light and darkness call for and harmonize with each other, drowning in a sea of rhythm. Even our memories are being destroyed. This love is so mighty, it never ceases. The love holds you so tight, never lets you go. And part of the question, of course, is that a good thing? Right? And I think that this is kind of the point, and this is why it's hard to get a handle on the song, because this is a song about conflict. It's a song about being sort of torn in competing directions. And there's the possibility of good and light, and there's the possibility of darkness and bad. but somehow they are intertwined, that they're sort of serendipitously bound together. And this is the problem. And this, of course, is the nature of love often, right? Particularly if this love is sort of following on from problems, as the first few lines suggest, that there's some sort of guilt or problem in the past, which is complicating things where they are now. And there's something sort of weirdly Shakespearean about this, unsurprisingly. And again, as ever, I'm not suggesting that BABYMETAL and the rest of them have Shakespeare open in front of them, but I do think it's interesting that they're finding in this slightly sort of Zen, meditative sense of paradox something which to me is very Shakespearean in terms of thinking about the power of love and the way that love complicates and paralyzes the way that people fall in love with love, even when they know that it's destructive, right? And these lines, this stuff about the harmonizing, the focus on music, harmony and rhythm, and combined with these images of water, of drowning, of people being somehow tied together, is very reminiscent of something like Twelfth Night. If music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. He's listening to music and he's like, I want to hear more of this because it makes me miserable. But if I hear enough of it, maybe I will come out of this paralyzing sense of love that is leaving me incapable of doing anything because I'm so bound to this other person. And in this case, a person who is not in love with me, right? O spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that notwithstanding thy capacity receiveth as the sea, naught enters there of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abasement and low price even in a minute. What Orsino is saying in that moment is that love itself is so huge that the object that you drop into the sea of love is immediately consumed by it. Love is bigger than the thing you love, in other words. And this is why people drown in it. They fall into it, and the thing that they love is in it. But love itself is big, and like the sea, it's beautiful and powerful and dangerous, right? Because you have no control of it, right? If you've ever been out on a boat in a high sea, there's the sense that you are at the mercy of the elements. And I feel that here, right, in this song. So yeah, I think on the one hand, this is a love song, but it's a conflicted love song, right? We want good things to come from this, but we're also conscious that the love is hard. It's difficult. There's that word again. And I think that this is why the song is sort of oddly jarring at moments, right? And this is my main idea for the song, right? That the form of the song fits the content. And I include the choreography in that form. But particularly the musicality, the structure of the melody, the way that it's constantly shifting and doing weird things, even within the verse where it shifts direction, shifts pitch, shifts volume, shifts the sort of rhythm. Not in that prog rock, very self-conscious movement of time signatures and complicated instrumental work. This is all about the voice. This is all about the melody. This is all about the core of the song itself. And I think that difficulty is about mirroring the difficulty at the heart of the lyric, the content of the lyric. This sense of being conflicted by the position that you're in, that you're on a sort of knife edge between light and dark, and it's both and neither, and you don't know where things are going to go. And so I think the song is giving us that, and that sort of that sense of that flat note, for example, which surprises you the first time you hear it. You think it's going to go somewhere else, and then it hits you with this other thing, and it's sort of jarring and makes you need the next line to resolve back to the main notes of the scale. What? Where did this come from? Right? So suddenly again, we're back into that sort of nightclubby kind of feel. And there's something about the way Sue steps forward that suddenly she relaxes into the performance. This is a slightly odd video, of course, as a number of people have already pointed out, because it's clearly not using live audio. I was concerned when I first heard some of some bootleg recordings that leaked out about this. And I think it was just the way the thing was recorded, but it sounded like she was fighting to find the notes. Because, again, this is a really difficult song to sing. That it's requiring you to hit things up and down the scale all over the place. And just sort of, your voice has to imagine its way into something because there's no lead in, right? It's not sort of moving up by tones or semitones. It's moving up by thirds and fifths and jumping around within the scale. And that's really hard, I think. And I was wondering if the audio for this particular song live was really difficult to nail, you know? And so I think that there's something very slightly alienating about watching the video and seeing just occasionally that's clearly very slightly out of sync with the audio. But certainly in this moment, she seems to sort of relax into it a little bit. But the lyric, let me out, tobidaso, so jump out of here. Yorokobi no ame ni utarete. So while we're being sort of hit by the rain of happiness, of exhilaration, moving into this sort of the rainstorm of something that maybe sort of washes away the bad feeling, the memory that we're trying to get away from. But it's about escaping, let me go, right? And it concludes with the impulse to dance. Take me out again. So we're back to this. Take me back to the place beyond memory, and get rid of the mask, which is full of deceit right now. Right. That's sort of the urgency of it, shedding the sort of dissimulation. Right. So this is also a desire to connect, but there's this request to let me go right just now. Let's dance through the night, and the image of the rain hitting you. You know, again, it's complicated. It's difficult because these are images that are positive and negative simultaneously, right? Running through the rain. That can be a bad experience, but it can also be a good experience. It can be about exhilaration. It can be about washing. It can be about clearing your mind, getting rid of whatever the past was. But it's not an uncomplicated image of good feeling, right? Being out in the rain. Because you're still getting wet and it's cold and miserable. I mean, potentially, right? So that, again, it's all about layering the good things and the bad things kind of on top of each other. So we're still sort of feeling corrupted and falling into a dream. Again, tonight, light and darkness harmonizing with each other. There's a sense of balance. And we're sort of drowning in the sea of rhythms which are somehow washing away. The memories are being destroyed, and the love is mighty. It never ceases, and it holds on. And I think in this moment we feel something more positive, right? That this sort of anthemic, the chorus moments, give us more of a sense of something clearly upbeat and positive. But then it pulls back again. You hear that again, right? That we're not out of this phrase when suddenly it steps up. So it's surprising. So again, so we go into this sort of more mellow part, and it's got that sort of, again, we're back into that sort of more dancey kind of rhythm, but there's something more reflective, more almost melancholy about the tonality of it. And we're talking about the night as being almost flooded with grief, with sorrow, and we're asking for the love to heat us up, to warm up, and then again we're opening the door into this sort of new moment, this present moment. And there's that other surprise, right? So we get this sort of slightly frantic choreography, reminiscent of something like Yaba, right? Where it starts to feel like everybody's head's about to explode as all the sort of contradictions and difficulties mount up on us. And it's hard, it's stressful. And then it drops out, we get that moment of blackness, and then it comes in, but it doesn't come in with that full-throated hit that we expect. It comes in a couple of steps below that in terms of intensity, and then gears up. So we're constantly being wrong-footed by the song. That's my point. This is what I mean about it being difficult. We're constantly being thrown slightly off, as if the song is sort of saying, you expect this, now we go here. You expect this, now we go here, right? And so you're always a little off kilter. And I think that's because that's the core idea of the song, and it's trying to communicate that to the audience. So in this moment, we get the sort of the slightly slowed down, the slightly muted return to the song, and we go back. And then in the next line, it kicks up. Right there. Yeah. So we get our final return to the sort of getting corrupted, even in our dreams. It's a night when hope and despair call for and harmonize with each other. So it's not just light and darkness, hope and despair, right? The sense of these two things coming together, resounding forevermore. Even our hearts are being fulfilled. And this love is mighty, it never ceases. This love holds tight, never lets you go. And again, I guess that's a good thing. But it's complicated, right? It's complicated. And I think it's complicated in a number of different ways, right? On the one hand, love itself can be complicated, like the 12th Night reference that I was making before. But the love can also offer, that's the light that gets us out of the darkness. But I think, those first lines about being somehow red-handed, about being responsible, being guilty, suggest that the love itself is complicated. This is not a song about attraction. This is a song about relationship, right? This is a song that sees that love is attraction plus time. And whenever you have attraction plus time, you have difficulties. You have things that go wrong, things that break, things that have to be rebuilt and fixed. If you've been in any kind of long-term relationship, you know this, right? And it's something that often gets reduced in popular music, that all we're interested in is the intensity of that first attraction or whatever it is. But long-term, it's more difficult than that. And we're trying to open these doors into the next positive step that we're not always certain if what we're going to get is the light or the dark. That's the way I'm reading it. I do think that the very complexity of the song means that it's open to lots of interpretations. We've been talking this a lot recently over exactly how to read monochrome. And, you know, and I'm of the mind that for baby metal, the audience is expected to complete the loop. The songs are written in such a way that they are open-ended enough that you're supposed to insert yourself into them and find what is meaningful and resonant for you. And that's what generates community. And that's what produces the final meaning, which is why I'm a little resistant to when people say, it's about this, something very specific. And frequently, I don't think it is. And you look at the lyric and you're like, well, where exactly does it nail that and nothing else? And I frequently don't find that. And I think this song is a classic example of it. It's a collection of images and ideas, many of which are ambiguous, many of which are complicated, and which don't map out a narrative exactly, right? Except to say the song begins in some sort of difficulty about a relationship, that there's something difficult in the past that we're trying to move on from. And we're at this sort of moment where it can go in a number of different directions. And we're trying to work through it. And this is good and bad simultaneously and can get better or worse. I think that's my sense of the song. And where do we finish? To me, I think if there's optimism in the song in terms of the choreography, the sort of openness, the verticality of those final gestures suggests less of that confining, mechanistic, robotic stuff that we saw right at the top of the song. That I think the idea is that the song has worked through some stuff and is opening up the possibility of something more positive to come. But it's not clear, I don't think. I don't think it's like a slam dunk, oh, now everything's going to be great, right? Because we're still in this sort of moment of paradox, of balance, where things are, you know, both good and bad, light and darkness simultaneously. Yeah, that's my sense. Not definitive, but I don't know that I could do I can't do a definitive reading of this song for all the reasons that I've already said. But that's my sense of the core of it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. As ever, share your thoughts, feelings. I try to respond as much as possible. This is one of those things where the more views the video gets, the harder it is for me to keep up. And sometimes comments come through that I just don't see. But I do my best to sort of make this part of a larger conversation with whoever is watching, the fan base, the band's fan base, not my fan base. Yeah, contribute whatever you think. I do have merchandise, I'll put a link to that. I do have books, which have nothing to do with this, though I do have something coming which kind of does. I'll tell you about that later. And I do have a Patreon page where people, you know, support this channel, because I don't make money off the channel in any way. So please check those things out. And I will talk to you soon. And I hope everybody's doing okay. Thanks. Bye.